Hello, everyone. Welcome to CMO Therapy, a podcast that's hopefully going to help you navigate your way through your marketing journey. Because let me tell you, I get it. Being a marketing leader is no walk in the park. In each episode, we dive headfirst into the world of marketing, where uncertainty, tight budgets, and fierce competition are just the beginning of the rollercoaster ride. But guess what? You are not alone in this journey. Why go solo when you can tap into the powerhouse of insights from some of the most awesome marketing leaders in the game? And look, the title might include the word therapy, but we are not just talking about challenges here. We are tackling them head on. So join us as we deep dive into the nitty-gritty, share war stories, and unlock secret strategies. And get ready for no holds barred conversations, because sometimes I have no filter. So if you are a chief marketing officer, a marketing lead, or just someone looking to up their marketing game, then I am so glad that you are here with us today. And I am also very glad to have here with me today the very awesome Jasper Martens, CMO of PensionBee. Jasper, can you give a little bit of an introduction, please?
Well, thank you so much to being on your therapy sofa today, Lucy. I'm looking forward to our conversation today. So I'm Jasper Martens. I'm the CMO at PensionBee, UK's, I'd say, online pension provider. New to the game. We've just turned 10 years old, and we went from 0 customers to now almost 300,000 customers in those 10 years. It's been a bit of a ride, and I've been a financial services marketeer since I've moved to the UK in 2009, worked for an insurance company and now for PensionBee. And I'm currently actually based in the US, where we are now expanding into the US. And I have a suspicion we might actually going to talk about some of that today, Lucy.
Exactly. So heads up, everybody. I am actually a PensionBee mega fan. So there is going to be a certain level of excitement that I'm having to kind of try and keep under wraps today. But if there is an occasional burst of energy, then I apologize. That's why. So the title of this podcast is Passport, Please, Marketing's Unexpected Trip to Going Global. And what we're talking about here is exactly what you just said, that it's that moment that the CEO kind of, pops his head around the corner of the office or pops onto a Zoom and says to you, yeah, I think we need to take this global. We need to go international. What does that really mean? You've just doubled, tripled your market there. And does my budget double or triple? I don't know. But this is all the fun stuff that we're going to talk about today. So yeah, in that situation then, Jasper, I mean, I'm interested actually when that conversation came about. Then you introduced yourself, first of all, as kind of the UK sort of pension provider. What was that moment when the CEO popped their head around the corner and said, I've got an idea, let's go global?
It was a Slack message.
No.
And this was around, not that we're going to do this, but there is an opportunity. So just to step back one bit in terms of how this came in light. So one of our long-standing partners, State Street Global Advisors, which is one of the biggest money managers in the world, is a minority shareholder in PensionBee since, I believe, 2018. And we are also offering their products. Some of our PensionBee plans in the UK are underwritten by State Street. There was a conversation about potentially an opportunity in the US and should we do this together? That was a conversation that our CEO Romy had. And then the Slack message came around, let's explore this in a bit more detail. Fast forward a year and a bit, and we've launched in the US last August with our PensionBee IRA, which is like the retirement account. That's what it's called in the US. And we're doing this with State Street. So it's a very, very interesting partnership. Not going into all of the details, but they are supporting us on our marketing efforts. And we are offering solely the State Street portfolio to our customers in the US. But yeah, that initial conversation. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. Because on one hand, I felt like the retirement opportunity in the UK is so big. We've got, I guess, 2% market share. There's so much to do in the UK before I was even considering looking at other markets. But I guess the job of a CEO is always about strategically and thinking ahead. And I know Romy, I've been working with Romy for 10 years now. She's already looking far ahead in other opportunities, and the US was definitely one that came to light. But I did have a bit of an oh shit moment, because I felt like, okay, so how is this going to work? Multiple teams, budgets, etc. One thing that I would say that has really helped me to assess the opportunity is that I was able to do this with Romy. So going back and forth to the United States, to talk to State Street, to talk to other parties involved to get this off the ground has been very helpful.
That's really interesting, and it's key. It's not just that kind of idea of let's go global. It actually came with already some sort of thought process behind it, obviously, and also that strategic partnership in place. So you already had that kind of that channel, that path, or that must have given you sort of that comfort then, right?
Yes, I'd say on paper that really feels like the comfort and the support you need. The reality is though that you are arriving in the US with the UK mindset, the UK, like this is how we do stuff in the UK. You have been warned by many people, including your strategic partner in the US, do not copy paste all your assumptions because the market is different. So you are aware of that, but it really hits you when you actually get started in the US, how different a country actually is and how not you can do copy paste in many ways, whether it's your product or whether it's your marketing. So that realization, so you can be prepared and you can have a strategic partner board, which really helps to go to the United States. Is a very difficult market to crack, fierce competition. It's not united at all. All the states have different regulations. So having a partner on board is fantastic. But still, it really hit me in terms of how different we had to approach this market here.
I was listening to, I think it was like a CMO kind of roundtable, like an online roundtable that I was on the other week, and one of the ladies said she was actually based in the US, and she said, oh, it drives me crazy when I'm looking at plans and it says, we're going to tackle EMEA, like EMEA, and don't you know that there's like X amount of countries and it's all the different cultures. But I think sometimes we do it the other way around as well, right? Oh, we're going to crack the US, but exactly what you just said, it's no different to EMEA, right? They're just almost lots of different countries and cultures within themselves. So how did you where do you even start with that then? Like, you had all of these thoughts going through your head, like where did you start?
I think what you do have to start with, making sure your own clan, your own group of people is the right group of people and bring the right culture. So the reason why I'm in New York at the moment is being with PensionBee for 10 years, bringing also a bit of culture and approach that we've got in the UK and bring that to the US. Because if you just let it go, then things might get out of hand and get into a really bad state. So I think we were very keen to make sure that we are bringing the PensionBee way of doing things and culture to the United States. That really helps you to get the right hires in. I often say you can't add culture later like a hat. You've got to have your outfit in check before you even start. So for me, culture is from the start. So that's where you start. I think that you can bring some technology over. There's a lot of things you can copy. So that's why we feel like we can scale. And that's what we also told investors, like we can scale this way. We've got proprietary technology, etc. You can, what else you can scale? Where you can start testing channels early. So when we're spending quite a lot of money on paid search in the UK, you can use that Google team to say, hey, we're going to the US. Can you bring US specialists on board to help you to scale that channel initially and test that channel with creatives? So a lot of things you can really do initially. So go to market was initially just testing channels one by one and see how they compare to your UK equivalent. You use the same metrics, you use your same funnel conversion. Like in our case, we use registered customers, then a converted customer, then an actual invested customer when the money actually arrives, and there's various stages. How do they compare to the UK? So in that sense, you can definitely take some of your UK learnings to the US. But what if your initial cost of acquisition upper funnel is super cheap, which we saw in the US, fantastic. But the actual transfer process of a pension is not that easy at all in the US. They still work with checks and fax machines here. It's even worse than the UK. So understanding that had to be fixed is then how you can start optimizing that funnel. So summarize, lots of things you can apply, technology, your funnel, everything. You can work with strategic partners that you have got in the UK, can go international, but then start testing them one by one and start assessing what are the opportunities and what are potentially like threats that you have to overcome. I think that's the first thing we started. The other thing I've really learned in marketing is some things can be global, but other things should be local. And the building paid search campaigns initially can be global, but the copy that goes with a paid search ad should be local. And thinking that you can crack that from the UK and run paid search ads in the US, that's just farce. That just doesn't exist. As soon as we start hiring brand marketeers here in New York, the first thing they said, "Oh, Jasper. This is like Cool Britannia ruling the world in your paid search ads." So to rip everything out and rephrase everything, website copy. We thought we had it Americanized. Oh boy, it was so British. It even went as fast as our initial website, which was like 5 pages to get us off the ground. It's now being extended and being bigger. All of those pages had to be redesigned. We've got US visual designers here on the ground, and they did a redesign. It went live. The first thing I said, wow, this is an American website now. I can't tell you why, but it shows. It's so different from the UK. So while a lot of things you can apply globally, when it comes to brand, tone of voice, design, be local.
Be local, use local people that know.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's so interesting. I love that. I love what you said, just going back to kind of the start bit about like, where do you start? I love what you said about, first of all, about the culture. I think that's so true. You know, it's so hard to kind of just do things first and then put the culture hat kind of on top after, or try and change things. So that's a really good kind of foundation to build. And then, like you said as well about the technology, like, let's not forget, you're not starting from completely scratch, are you? You've already got a really great foundation to test from. So that's the key, is like the technology and the culture to start. But then, and like you said, all of the funnels and everything on top of that, all of the channels in the funnel on top of that, you've already got some good data to work from. So you just, keep telling yourself, although it sounds like you're starting kind of completely from scratch, you're not. You've got a lot of learnings already, right?
Yeah.
So that's perfect. But then, then it's like any other marketing, your normal marketing job anyway, which is just continuous testing and learning then, right?
Yes. And be on the ground. So Lucy, the moment I arrived with my 2 suitcases here in New York in my apartment, and I went to the office full time here, and I'm allowed to swear on this podcast, right?
Of course you are. Yeah.
But I was like, oh shit, this is so not what I was expecting. It hits you. And I remember my first marketing hire here, Nicole, she didn't say, "I told you so," but the face was like, "I told you," like, it's different. It hits you different. And decided really with the team in the UK, let's just make some changes and bring some of this expertise local. So what we need local, let's get it local. And what we can keep global for now, we keep it global. I think that was one of the key things. The other thing you will notice when you go international, when you have a well-established market like we've got in the UK, we've got so many customers now, it's growing, it's steady. Well, not steady, but like still hard work, but it's growing, it's a mature business. Everybody who's working on the US will see it as a US project. And when it's seen as like a fancy new project, that can often be translated into, this is fun, but it's a project. On the side, in brackets,
Yeah.
In people's mindset. No. If I want people to work from the UK on this, this is your job. This is your full-time thing. So we had to untangle people's roles. We say like, okay, you working on the US market and you work on the UK market. It was really important because they will naturally prioritize UK first and US second because that's what they know and that's what they comfortable with. That's how we work as human beings. There's nothing wrong with that, but just understanding that that's how we tend to work. So we've got a team US in the UK working for the US only, and that's just really important as well.
So this is really interesting, right? So if you go back then to when you were building out that the UK marketing team and kind of still sort of establishing yourself, if the business would have come to you then and said, let's go global, let's start doing the US, would you have had a bit of a different reaction?
I think it probably would have been suicidal because when you are working in a market that's we just started to get wings and we started to take off. I think from 2021 onwards, it really started to take off in the UK in terms of scalability and size. I think we just in a moment now in the UK where the team is mature. We've got some great directors in various parts of the marketing and product teams. They've been with the company for a long time. Again, part of our culture is we actually have people who've been with us for a long time. It really helps to mature that side of the business. But then again, it's also the moment when I got that Slack message from our CEO from let's explore the US. It felt like it was the right time. I don't think she would have actually asked us to do this anytime sooner. For us, the moment where we felt like we were ready to go abroad was also the moment when our company became profitable in the UK. So last year we became profitable, and including marketing spend and everything. And that meant that it felt like this business is on track. It is growing, it is delivering, it's maturing, it has the right people. Now is the time to move. If you've done it earlier, you would have spread yourself so thin that you might have actually forgotten that your initial market still needed a lot of nurturing and maturing.
Yeah, that timing is so interesting, isn't it? It's I've worked for many sort of tech companies where I think where they have tried to sort of go global, and try and expand sort of too quickly. And you're right, it's the spreading yourself kind of a little bit too thin, or thinking that you've got something that's working, and to the point that you made very early on, that that will work in every different region or every different country. And
the one thing I would say what made this decision be much easier for us all. So PensionBee's management team, everybody who joined us has never left. So it's a very unique situation. I've worked with our CEO, CTO for 10 years. Wow. CFO came later on board, he's never left. And our Chief Engagement Officer, they joined us very early, never left. What that creates is an environment where, yes, we disagree often, that's what you do, but you do trust each other. And if the trust is there, you can almost you don't. The best way to describe is like when our CEO says now it's time to move to the US, she's probably right, and I can trust her that she's making the right call. If there was no trust, then I probably would have left the company anyway, right? So I think that is very unique to the company I operate in, is that we trust each other almost blindly in terms of the decision making. So when the US opportunity came, although I did have an oh shit moment where I felt, this is going to be a big job, I did felt like, no, we're making the right decision here. I was trusting the team to make that decision.
Yeah, they've all got your back.
Yeah, exactly.
So how did you talking about the kind of the management team then, and interesting sort of what you were saying earlier about people kind of perceiving this as almost like an experiment or a project. How did you build, or how did you communicate that and keep the the different stages of the journey kind of open, I suppose, like back to the leadership team? How did you communicate back to them of how things are going and the status, I mean?
Yeah. So I think there's two elements to that. So first of all, we have a culture where we allow to experiment and learn and fail, and succeed, of course, but also fail. So you try something, but if it doesn't work, then if you've got the culture in from the start, guess what happens? People will speak up and say, hey, this is not working. Shall we try it in another way? And at PensionBee, we've got a culture where we say, okay, let's sit down and let's evaluate. This went well, this didn't went well. How can we change things up? I think that's so important in many organizations. People just keep quiet and just soldier on, but you soldier yourself into marshland and you go under, right? So it's really about speaking up and say, hey, this is not working. That's what happened. So a lot of things we did to the US worked and are still working, and some things didn't. And then you speak up. And therefore, when we saw that we needed to bring more marketing expertise, more product expertise local, because the market is so different, we actually made that call quite quickly. And therefore start hiring people locally, change the plan up. And that form of communication where I, in a management team, can go back and say, hey guys, this is not working. But guess what? People on the ground, including our beekeepers, our customer success managers, everybody in operations, in product, and when they can speak up and say, this is not working, or this is really working, look at that, success, yay, but also this is not working, and then we fix it. So it's that speaking up.
Yeah, you're so right, actually. Yeah, like people need to feel comfortable that they can kind of fail, because we have to fail to learn, right? Otherwise, yeah, if we were doing things right all the time, well, nobody does. That doesn't happen. So you were talking about the culture and about how when you traveled over to kind of the US with your suitcases and opened up the office. And so do you have any sort of stories about when you were sort of trying to build that the kind of the same PensionBee culture that you have there, and maybe when it didn't quite work, and did it kind of go wrong at all, or any funny stories?
I think one of the most funny stories is the word pension. So in the US, pension means something different than in the UK. So in the US, that's actually a defined benefit pension. So for those who are in the know, these are these very old-fashioned gold-plated pensions that you used to get and give you a guaranteed income from life when you retire. Wow. Most pensions these days are defined contribution. Now in the UK, we call defined benefit and defined contribution, both we call them pensions. But in the US, a defined contribution, so the modern one, is called a 401k plan. Yes. And you move that into an individual retirement account, an IRA.
So 401kB doesn't quite have the same ring.
No, an IRA-B sounds like a terrorist organization. So yeah. I'm not sure that's even going to work. But we do have an issue with our brand name there in terms of explaining to people that it's not a pension, it's actually an IRA we offer. And we knew that was an issue, but we didn't tackle it right on our website. So even our tagline, Be Pension Confident, that we use in the UK, we actually were using it in the US when we went live. And the US marketing team was looking at me like, Jasper, this doesn't make any sense at all. But we were saying, no, this is our global tagline, so thou shalt use our global tagline. And this is where they were speaking out. It's like, this is not working, etc. So that's a very basic thing that we had to change to be retirement confident, for example. And there's been many other things where in the copy where we had to really clarify that we were something else. So it was a bit embarrassing actually, that we were making such a basic mistake. Looking back at it now, it really feels like, how did we get this so wrong? But I can guarantee you, when we started, we were absolutely convinced, no, this is what we're going to do. So that felt like a really interesting thing. The other thing is the way people talk about retirement here in the US is all about investment and returns, etc. While in the UK, it's very much about contributions, how much do you need to put money in, etc., etc. So Americans are a bit more risk focused. They think more about investments, etc., rather than in the UK. And just getting that right was quite a challenge in our copy, our tone of voice, and so forth. And, fortunately, the team addressed that from the early start, and we've been able to work on it. That's why I just said to you earlier, once we started to redesign the website again here in the US, I was like, okay, I'm looking at a US website now, and it's totally not British anymore at all.
Did you ever think about like taking some of those sort of learnings back, putting them back, I suppose, into the UK? So take like just for example, where you said about the tagline being "Be pension," was it red or confident? Be pension confident, and then maybe be retirement confident. Like, would you think about maybe testing that sort of in the UK to see whether that has a difference?
Yes, I mean, there's been some discussions on that one as well. What do we do after this campaign, and do we want to change the tagline? There's some other things though that I felt like we, just to stay in the PensionBee theme, there's definitely been some pollination between the two markets. We have been testing initially the channels that we've been using in the UK and see how they scale and how they perform, and get us ready for when we can really scale up operations when the product is ready. But we've also tested some new channels here in the US that we weren't really testing in the UK. So to give you some examples, working with vetted, credible finfluencers, doing retirement one-on-one videos here in the US, we're actually going to really copy that production into the UK, because we can see a UK version, how that can fly so well. We are working with finfluencers in the UK, but we are working so much more here with finfluencers in the US. Actually skipping linear TV and some other channels and go straight into the finfluencer sphere. The learnings we get here, actually the team in the UK are taking them on. So where we see lots of pollination between our countries on the use of marketing channels and trends we're seeing, and does this apply to the UK? Does it apply to the US? Can we pivot on this one? Can we change, or can we just copy paste?
Yeah, that's so awesome. That's really, really interesting. It's exciting, actually, almost having that, it's almost like having a test environment sort of thing. Well, either way, it works both ways, but having a little bit of a test environment that you can sort of push some stuff into. And there's one area that I'd like to just pick your brain on quickly before we finish. But going back to, again, that kind of that moment where it's like, okay, I've got this idea, let's do this. When you started thinking about, we talked about the strategy that you would kind of apply for it, but what about things like kind of like budgeting and the kind of like resourcing and all of that sort of thing? Like, how did you kind of tackle those sort of conversations with the leadership team?
Wow. Well, first of all, you get the question, what do you need? Whoops.
I know. I hate that question. What can you give me?
Yeah. So, or what's the minimum you can get started with?
Yes.
I've always had, again. So first of all, there's been trust in the leadership team that when I ask, this is what I need, I generally mean that's what I need, and I am not exaggerating, and I'm not taking the luxury. I'm not. I'm generally looking at the minimum viable team or the minimum lovable team to get started. So that trust is there. That's a good start. Second is you can use some of your earlier data from the UK and see how you grew in the first 3-4 years. Apply that to the US model and see where you can tweak it. So at least it's based on some assumptions and some data, so you can get more confidence. And the third one is, how much money do we have available? Apply that to your model and see if you need all of the money, part of the money. That meant in my position, when I started to do a forecast in terms of, this is what I expect to happen, this is what I expect to spend, this is what I expect to need in resources, like whether it's people, whether it's money or assets, etc. I actually had to say, I don't need all of that money. I just literally gave money back and say, actually, I don't need it right now in the testing phase. And you can only do that when you've got, in this case, an earlier experience in another market. You base your assumptions on that initial growth you've had in that market, apply some assumptions for the US market, and then calculate what you need. Now, have I been accurate? Probably not, because things always go different than they are. But then readjusting, reforecasting, play open cards with the management team and your finance team about this is actually what's happening on the ground. I actually need more money, or in our case, actually, I want to use even less money because I want to get the testing right before we scale up. So I'm probably going to spend it still, but I want to spend it later in the year or early next year, please. Thank you very much. And that dialogue needs to happen when you go to another market. But like I said, if you can base it on what's happened in your initial market, apply the US filter on it, you are in a really good shape and pretty accurate in terms of telling the team what you need.
So, I mean, that's how you build the relationship with your senior management team, particularly the CFO, right? Just keeping them kind of up to date and just being really honest. Like you said, I don't need that money now. That's something that you never think that you're going to hear come out of a CMO's mouth, right? But yeah.
The interesting thing in terms of that trust building I've just talked about, I trust our CFO blindly, and I think he trusts me too, I hope. But reality is, CFOs and CMOs, they tend to have very tense conversations. I've never come across CFOs and CMOs who actually like each other, as in from a business. There's always this tension. Do you really need that money? And I CMOs constantly trying to get funds from CFOs, and CFOs kind of like, oh, I'm not sure about that. In our situations, it's often the other way around. He will tell me, actually, you've got this available for next year based on our forecast. What do you need? And then usually it's like, well, I can use all of that. This is what I can achieve based on our earlier data and our earlier forecast. And it's like, but can I use less? Because then I feel like I'm more confident, etc. That's a really interesting conversation. I don't think it often happens in companies where CFOs actually will give you the money, and it's often on the too much side rather than not enough side. It's usually the other way around. But then again, it's based on trust, it's based on data that we've got.
Yeah, I think you just said the two key words, right? Trust and data. Exactly. We're coming up to time, but we have a tradition on this podcast that I go out to my kind of network or the audience, and I say to them, if you could ask one burning question to a marketing leader, if you had a marketing leader standing in front of you now, like what would that burning question be? So if you don't mind, I have a question for you. And the question is, what's that marketing trend, the kind of future marketing trend that you've sort of seen or you've read about or you can see in the future that you're kind of most excited about and you're not yet doing, but you're most excited about?
That's a very good question. I think we are starting to do it. Is that allowed too?
Go on, you're allowed that.
So I think the vast majority of our marketing efforts / spend will come from people who are not part of supporting people telling about PensionBee without being PensionBee. So whether that is a customer or whether that's an influencer, all of the channels, all of the marketing campaigns where people are telling the story of PensionBee. So if I can let other people telling the PensionBee gospel, rather than me doing that hard work every single day, it's probably going to be more effective. So that means that I might say goodbye to linear TV in the future. I might say goodbye to a billboard campaign, and I might go completely onto influence customers and other influencers, credible ones, by the way, vetted, like trusted, who tell that how great PensionBee is and how it changes their lives. We're doing way more of that one than we used to, but I'd say for me, that's the future. That's the future for any financial brand, to be honest. Yeah.
Awesome. And that's a great one to end on, actually. I am one of those. I tell everybody about PensionBee.
That's lovely to hear. That's really lovely to hear. And it's just, we know from our data that a third of our customers will come in through family member. And I can't tell you how many couples we've got as customers when one of the two joins and then the other will follow quite soon. And that's just, that's really lovely to hear.
Yeah, and the children come after that, and they're doing the marketing for yourself. So that's amazing, good stuff. Thank you so much. It's such a good conversation, and there was so much more we could talk about, but we don't have all day. Thank you very much for your time, Jasper. Cheers. Bye bye.